Hi, it's Jared with PySQL again. Today we're going to talk a little bit about project organization and also about lists and kind of go through that. All right, to get started, we're back in Thonny. And let's go ahead and look at this area right here. So far, we've worked inside the shell, and that's fine, to a degree, but you can't build programs inside the shell. You have to actually build programs inside of files. So we're going to start here, and we're going to save the file. And I'm going to save as here, and I have a preset location that I'm going to save it. And notice it's going to save it as a Python file. I'm going to go ahead and choose the name as o1 underscore lists. Now, typically, you don't really want to start a file with a number, but because this is a tutorial, I'm starting with the number just for the sake of organizing the files later. So if you guys get a hold of these files, you're able to follow along a little bit, okay? So in real life, though, you don't want to start a file with a number. Okay, so now that I got that started, we're gonna talk a little about how Python runs through the file. So it starts at the bottom. It starts at the top and it works its way down. And so usually what you want is you want a lot of your information up on top, and then you're going to execute that information on the bottom. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a list, and I'm just going to call it a list. And we're going to say a list equals to, and the way to make a list inside of Python is to make it in brackets like this, okay? So right now, this is creating just a blank list. And I'm going to say, the next part, I'm going to say print a list, okay? And I'm going to use this button up here, and this runs it. It's also F5 if you want to press that. And it's just going to go run through that program and see how it's going to come down here. And we can see it in the shell how it prints the list. The list is blank, nothing inside of it. Now we're going to go ahead and do blist. And normally you don't do A and B. You actually want to use the names of the lists to explain what they are. Again, this is a tutorial, so we're breaking some of the rules just for the sake of learning. So we're going to go blist, and I'm going to add one item to the list, and it's going to be the letter B. And then I'm going to print it, print blist, okay? And we're going to run the whole program again. And it's going to print first that empty one, then it's going to print the second one, which has one thing inside of it. Now, something to understand about how programming works with lists and pretty much anything that's indexed is it doesn't start with the number 1. It starts with the number 0. This is really, really important. So if you ever want to select something in the list, you need to actually select something by its index, which is always basically one number behind. So if we come back down here to the shell, just to kind of play with this a little bit, if I want to say blist, okay, I have that B. Now, if I want to select something in the blist, I would go blist, and I'd make these brackets on the end of that variable, and I would choose a number that is the index of the thing I want to select. Okay, so in this case, with blist, there's only one item, and that one item is an index 0. Okay, so if I say blist and I select 0, I'm going to get that B. Now, if I do blist and I select 1, I'm going to get nothing because there's nothing in the 1 spot. Okay, so let's come down here again and do CList. And inside of CList, I'm going to make it equal A for the first one. Then I'm going to do comma, B for the second one, comma, C for the third one. Okay, and once I go ahead and make that list, I'm going to print it. CList. Okay. And I'm going to, and this time, instead of running it, I'm actually going to do a debug. And I'm going to do this just for the sake of education. This is a really nice way to kind of go through things and try to find some problems. So when I hit debug, what it's going to do is it's going to go to this first line. And if you've ever been in VBA, this particular debug actually works kind of like the VBA debug. And we're going to go ahead and step into the next, we're going to step over that one, and it's going to create the A-list variable. You can see it over here. If you don't have the variable screen, you can come to View, and down here you can choose variables. Okay, so step over again means it's going to go over that one and print it. And you can see down here we have the empty list. Okay, step over again. I'm going to do that a couple times. Print that, and then once it's done, we go ahead and we have an empty shell here with all of our variables ready to go, so we can kind of play with it. And so, in order to select the thing in the list that I want, I'm going to go ahead and go CList. Use the brackets again because I'm going to be choosing which one. If I do 0, I'm going to get back A. If I do 1, I'm going to get back B. If I do 2, I'm going to get back C. So you see how this is pretty simple stuff, but you have to just really remember that with things that are indexed inside of Python or most programming languages, they always start with 0. So you got to kind of roll back a little bit, some things that you might have been taught in Excel, where you're looking for like the first column or the first row inside of Python. That's always going to be the 0 index. Okay, and let's expand a little bit about these lists. We're going to make a dlist. And inside lists, you don't have to have all the same data types. So here we have a string. We can also put a number, and then we can put another string. Let's say B. Okay. And so just like that, we can go ahead and put whatever we want inside these lists, whatever suits our needs. Another thing that you want to know about lists is that you can nest lists inside of themselves. So let's say we go elist. Okay, I'm going to use lowercase e. Elist, and we're going to make it equal a list, obviously, because we're going to have our brackets. And we're going to say it's blist. Oh, helps by underscore it. Alist underscore CList. And then dlist. Okay. Now, if I go print elist, let's just go ahead and run this and see what we get out of this. Okay. So notice that we have a list, which is in brackets on the ends. And then inside of that, the first item is a list in itself. So if I come down here and I want to let's just copy this. And I want to get the B list of this one. I'm going to say 0. And just for the sake of education, I'm going to come down here and just copy that and paste it down here. And so that gives me back the list that is the B list. So if I do, let's say print, and I come, if I do print and I want to see the type, the first indexed thing inside of elist is a list itself. Okay, so now the question is, how do I get to that next indexed thing? So let's say I want to get the letter B, but I want to get the letter B out of my second list. Okay, or let's say C, because this is the only one with C. So C is in my second list inside my list. So in order to do that, let's say I'm gonna print this, and instead of index 1, because 1 is going to be that first one, I'm going to go index 2. So index 2 will give me that second list. Inside this list, I have 0, 1, 2. So it's in the index, the second location. So I'm going to go 2 for that. Okay. And if I just come down here and print that inside my shell, then I get that letter B. Oh, you know what? Because I messed up, I accidentally, this 0, 1, 2. I should have gone and done 1. I should have gone and done 1 here. I misled you. Okay, so that's going to be C. So let's do C. Oh. All right, so if we were to run this whole thing, this would give us everything that we need there. Now, something else about organization here is sometimes you might want to put in notes here and there. So in order to put in notes, you have to use the hash symbol, okay? Call it what you will, pound, hash, doesn't necessarily matter too much. But for instance, in here, if I wanted to put a note, I can put it either after my text that I have in there, or I can put it on its own line. For this one, let's go ahead and put the text here. We're going to say an empty list. And let's go and actually copy it and paste it up here. Okay. This one, we're going to say a list with one item. Okay. Here, let's just say this is a list with 3 items. Okay, then we have dlist down here, kind of same thing. And on this one, because we know that C is that one, we can say that we're trying to get the letter C from the list in index 1. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, so we can put notes in here, and that's really a good way to, kind of understand what you're doing. It depends on how you want to organize this. Some programmers like to put lots of notes. Some programmers just like to let their code do the writing for them, and they'll make variables with really long names. I like a mixture of both. I think that there's absolutely places for notes and that you should use them. But I also really like to be able to write my program in a way where the variable is clearly stated what it is. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how to combine lists. So let's say I had these lists that I wanted to combine. So I'm going to say combined list, combines list, and I'm going to say it equals these ones. To combine them, the simplest way is just use the plus sign. So if I was to use the plus sign between these, it would go ahead and combines that. I can say print combines list. And let's just run the whole program really quick. And you can see that all of those things are now plugged in together. So they literally were just added together. So it's not making a list of lists. It's taking one list and just making it bigger. And also notice that the order of the list is the first one is in the 0 position. Then we have 1, 2, 3 positions, which was list C. And then continue on. Okay, so next we're going to talk about is about splitting lists up a little bit, and also a little bit about strings. And so this is where I think is the most applicable. So a string is actually just a list. It's a list of letters. So let's say I have SKU equals FKP dash BLK dash 045. Okay, and we're going to make this a string. So I'm going to put quote marks on the outside of it. So let's say we have a SKU, and that's the SKU. And let's say for whatever reason I wanted to choose the last 3 things inside this index. Okay, so Python has a cool way that we can use this selection method. Right up here where we use the 1 and 2 and whatever, where we can select only parts of the list. So let's say these last 3 0, 4, 5 are the model number. Okay, so I say model number equals SKU, and I'm going to use our list thing. And here I'm going to go ahead and say -3, and I'm going to use this little colon symbol. Okay, so just for kicks, let's go ahead and just put it down here inside our shell. Oh, let's copy that. Okay, and then model number. Again, it helps if I spell right. Let's actually change this to model. I used mobile. That's not going to help us. Okay, and model number, and you see it's 045. So what I told the program to do is I said, go to this particular list, go backwards 1, 2, 3, okay, and then take everything after that. So it's actually going back -0, -1, -2, -3, and it's selecting this dash, and then I'm taking everything afterwards, okay? And so that's 0, 4, 5. Now, if you didn't memorize this particular part and you don't understand it quite yet, that's fine. You can kind of play with it. And if somehow you get the index wrong, you can make some changes there. And so let's say that the model number, but it is those last three. But let's say that we want just the first three, because the first three is maybe the series number. Okay, so series number equals SKU, and we're going to go ahead and say 3. So we're going to put the colon here, and then we're going to say 3. And it's basically saying, go to the third position and select all that. So let's go ahead and run the program. And we can come over here to our variables if we'd like to. And we can see the series numbers is those 3 and everything before it. Now notice the same thing, that it takes the index. So it goes 0 being the first one, 1, 2, 3. And that's actually this dash. And then it takes everything before. Just to show you, if I was just take SKU and I wanted to just choose index 3, I would get back that dash. So the colon saying everything before that. So same thing works with these other lists. Let's say we took one of the combined lists, okay? And we say we want to take everything before that. Okay, and I'm going to just say print. And let's just, for the sake of it, run the whole program again. We got those first 3, because it went to that third index, which here was C, and it said take everything before that. Okay, let's just get some notes here. And this one I'm going to say everything after index 3 counting backwards. Okay, and just copy that, because it basically says what we want, only we're not counting backwards. Okay, so this is the basics of lists. The main thing you want to understand is you want to understand how to cut lists up a little bit, and you want to understand how to select something in a list. And so selecting something in the list is by doing something like that. And combining lists together, you can use that plus sign. Now, obviously, there are other ways to do a lot of these different things, but these are the simplest ways and the ones that get you started the fastest. Now, let's say you wanted to append a list on the end of an existing list. We talked about using the plus sign where you can combine them. Another way to do it is by using append. Okay, and let's say we want to append something at the end of a list. So one way to do it is by creating a new item and, you know, like up here, like making a combine list and then adding those together. But if you don't want to necessarily assign a new variable or reassign the variable, you could also use the append function. So if I said combines list and I wanted to dot append, and I want to append, let's say SKU, okay? Then it would go ahead and append, and you can see the combined list added that SKU as the last item in there. Now, let's say for whatever reason, we went on to a for loop and we were just going over this list and we found an item that we're saying, hey, we don't want that item in the list anymore. In order to remove that item from the list, we can use the pop feature, okay? So let's just say, and look at here, so we have 0, 1, 2, and so let's say the second spot is a B in the combined list, and we want to remove that. So down here in the shell, I'll type it up here first so we get it. So let's go combined list dot pop, and then we want to use the index, which is going to be 2. Okay, and let's just toss it in the shell because already got a lot of these variables already. And we say that's B, and notice that it is no longer in the list. It actually removed it. Now, if we wanted to pop that and save it as something else, what we would do is we'd do that combined list, but we do it to a variable. The letter B. Actually, it's going to be something different now. It's going to be the letter C. And we can pop this again. And you notice that the letter C is now that letter C, and the letter C is now removed from the combined list. Okay, so let's add some notes here for you guys for later. Add item to end of the list and remove index 2 from the list. So I'll probably put down in the descriptions where you can find this information. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to this channel, and that will really help me out. And the next thing we're going to do, we're actually going to do a project where we'll pull in some information, and we'll use these, selecting methods to figure out, some information about the profit and loss and kind of bring in some accounting into this. Okay, well, we'll see you next time.